initially, when we started Oxygen, we only had support for DTDs, and not many documents referred to DTDs. So back then, we provided this support for schema-less editing. When you do not have a schema, we still need to provide some information. These days, most of the documents I work with at least have a schema somehow, either within the document or is associated externally based on the namespace or in some way. So this schema-less functionality is kind of hidden within Oxygen. And this and a couple of other things that are hidden there and probably not known by many of you is what I want to show you today. So why you should work, when you will work without a schema, there may be cases that no schema is available, or you are still developing the structure of the document, so there's no schema, you just make up that vocabulary. Especially if you have very simple documents, maybe the effort of creating a schema and using it, doesn't justify, just for a very simple document or for a one-time document. Or you hate schemas, maybe. There's also a case. So what we've done back then was that automatically when you open a document that does not have a schema information and Oxygen cannot find the schema information, we infer a DTD structure from the document itself. And we record, what elements, what attributes, and what attribute values are used. And then when you try to insert new elements, attributes, and values, Oxygen will offer these through the content completion support. And let's go here. So here we have the personal, one of the samples from Oxygen, right? And I remove the schema information. When I open this in Oxygen, you see in the status bar is this learn completed, it says, right? So automatically Oxygen already learned the structure of the document. So if I go here and try to insert an element, it shows me person. Then it shows me the ID and photo attributes that it found on other elements, other person elements. And then it shows also all the values that are within the document. Of course, for an ID, it's useless to get this information, but we do not know what kind of attribute that is, right? But if that attribute was, like a type, and maybe you had only 5 types in your document, you get those types to choose from. So in some cases, this information is useful. In other cases, you can just ignore it. So in other cases, it may be, useful because you can insert something and then just change part of that information, right? And so on. Inside person, it will show the elements that that are visible and so on. Now, an interesting idea of this is that Oxygen can also ignore schema information. So you have a schema, you have a document with a schema, but you can choose to ignore the schema information and learn the document structure instead, right? So in this way, you reduce the set of possible choices. If you have, like 100 elements possible at some moment, but your document only uses 3 of them. If you learn the document structure and use that to guide you, then you will have 3 choices, not 100 choices to choose from. And it's useful also because you get all these attribute values, and in some cases, as I said, if you have like 5 values that are useful and you will reuse them for an attribute, you can immediately insert them. Although those values are not specified as an enumeration in the schema and so on. So using the schema information, you cannot obtain those values basically. And the trick here is that, and the part that is not known and is not visible, you can switch between schema and the learn structure and back. We have this learn document structure action that will get you to the structure of the document, and then when you validate, it gets back to the schema, right? So you can switch, you can say learn structure, you have the restricted set of proposals, and then you say validate, and you get back to the full set of proposals, right? And let's open, let's say we open this data document. If I try to insert something here, oXygen will show all the possible elements. But if I trigger the learn document structure, which is Command-Shift-L or Control-Shift-L in Windows, you can find this also under document, XML document learn structure, and you find the actual shortcut on your platform. So if you trigger this action, then oXygen will show me here only paragraphs, because inside ByD I used only paragraphs, right? So, and okay, I insert paragraphs, and then I need a code block element. I can say validate. So Command-Shift-V. In this case, we have a more advanced data validation. That's why it gives key definition errors and things like that. But then you move to the complete set of elements, you insert the code block, and then if you go again on the learn structure, then you have a paragraph and code block to choose from. So this is like a easy way to switch between a reduced set of proposals and the full set of proposals immediately, just with the validate and learn document structure actions. A similar functionality that's also very hidden within oXygen, but it's related with this, is that we added at some point support for learning the words, the vocabulary that you are using in a document. So basically, oXygen will identify all distinct words that are larger than 3 characters, I think, something like that. And this is useful when you have a document that have some terms, let's say, that it's more difficult to spell them or something like that. Like we have in the flowers example, where we have Galatus Amarili, that's difficult terms to write, right? And in this case, we go in the options, type learn, and then on the content completion tab, you see here we have learn words. We enable this. And then when you type something, you may start with a prefix, or you can just hit Control space, and then you see all the learned words from the document, right? So then when I start typing G, I get this word, or this kind of. Again, this is a hidden functionality that not many people know about, right? In oXygen. So all this is controlled by the options that we have in this preference page in content completion, where we have these learned options, where you can choose to learn the attributes, by default, oXygen will learn when the document is opened, if there is no schema associated with the document. And you can choose to learn also the words. One of the takeaways is that this is useful also when you have a schema, because you can switch between the structure and the schema. And the related functionality with this is the support for code templates or abbreviations, where you can define a name and then expand that to a fragment, to a document fragment. So if you go to options and say templates here, you should be able to find the code templates. And there are already quite a good number of templates defined for schematron, XML schema, and so on. XSLT, for instance, whenever I want to write the copy template, the recursive copy template, I just type CT control space and I get that recursive copy template in XSLT immediately. Okay, so that's it. Thank you. Yes?
I just noticed that when I press learn structure, it doesn't forget the schema. It still gets these red underlines when you're not...
The validation still works with the schema. It's only the content completion that uses this structure. So it's only for content completion, you don't change the validation. The validation remains with the schema, yes.
Is there an easy way then to switch off validation for some editing purposes?
Yeah, you can do that. We extended as we have transformation scenarios to transform documents. We also have validation scenarios, right? And here you can say new validation scenario. By default is the current document with the default schema and so on. But you can, if you remove this, then now you don't have any validation going on. Or you can put whatever, only a schematron file or whatever you want for that document to be validated with. Yes?
I saw when you were switching, the learning in the menu, I also saw save structure.
Yes, you can also save that inferred structure, and in addition to that, we also embed trunk in oXygen, and you can convert from the document structure to RelaxNG to XML schema and so on.
Okay, so if I'm using that,
yes.
I write the structure, and then that's basically a new schema or a new DTD.
Yeah, this generates a DTD and automatically associates the DTD with the XML. Right? And now you have a document with the DTD.
So basically I can use this as the easiest data constraints tool in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Good.
But again, you can also use this generate convert schema support that will get you, also more constrained DTD that is done through trunk. Trunk is an open source project, part of Jing now, right? And this can convert also to RelaxNG, to XML schema, and also you can put as input not one document, but a set of documents. So it will infer a schema structure from 100 documents. So.
Yeah, but building constraints for non-geeks, that's what I'm looking at. So people who have these documents and they use whatever they need, they switch to non-learning, etc., and they put in the elements they need, and they say this is all we need. You write the schema, you have the set of constraints.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's cool. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on then.